Yeah, it's funny, mate. It's funny that as soon as they announce that Varane's leaving, now we start already seeing a few centre back news stories. So Tosin Adarabioyo, I can't even say his second name properly. Adarabioyo. Tosin Adarabioyo. Anyway, he seems like a pretty decent defender for free. 26 years old, obviously from Fulham. But yes, the story is obviously Rafa Varane was leaving Manchester United at the end of the season in 3 games' time. And I feel like, in a sense, that there's elements that feel wrong about it, right? In terms of the decision. So let's obviously look at both sides, as everyone should do. So yeah, let's just start off with the why it probably does feel a little bit wrong. The idea that Rafa Varane's been announced as the first player that's leaving is because obviously it's whether you're going to extend or not. And the idea is that we're not extending, so it's easy, isn't it? There's no negotiations with any other club. It's just completely down to Manchester United how they go about it. Do they want to extend or not? So it's completely in the club's hands. So in that sense, it is easier to get that over the line because it's purely based around you and your decision. So that's the reason why he's the first as such to go, mate, right? He's the first to go or the first to be announced. So that in itself feels a little bit wrong because of just the list of other players that could or should be kind of seen as first out of the door. I think Varane over his time at Manchester United has been a pretty good player. Now, that doesn't mean necessarily that it's not a regret signing him to a certain extent because of the age, the decline that is there, even though he can still fully hold his own in the Premier League, and also the injury basis. But I feel like Rafa Varane has played well. I feel like this season, when he's played, he's done well, and it's not even been an injury situation. Ten Hag didn't want to play one of the best centre backs of this generation because of tactical reasons. So this season, I think he's been fine. Last season, injuries ravaged part of the season, and the season before, probably even worse. But I feel like there's a lot of other players that should be getting the boot before Rafa Varane, so that element feels a bit wrong, right? There's a lot of players with a worse attitude. There's a lot of players that are technically worse. Lot of players that are just nowhere near the calibre of Rafa Varane. But I heard Stephen Howson talk about this, which is a good point, how Rafa Varane's a Real Madrid legend. France, massive accomplishments with France with the World Cup. So the kind of feeling is that it doesn't really, this Manchester United stint or this, even when he came, it only has, there's only a small amount of room left in Rafa Varane's kind of like emotional like tank. Do you know what I mean? He can only, there's not much more room for any more incredible stories in Rafa Varane's career. But saying that, I feel like in a team, if we were a functional team, if Varane moved to Arsenal, to Man City, to maybe not Liverpool at this moment in time, but say if he went to Arsenal or City, a functioning team, I think you people are eulogising about Varane, saying how he can still do it and how he's still this Rolls Royce of a defender. And I feel like in a different team where he'd be managed more, like a Manchester City, for example, in that kind of team, I feel like injuries would be less. It's less of a vertical, crazy physical game for the Manchester City defenders. So I feel like it'd have been a different story, right? I feel like us as a team, the environment that Manchester United create or have created over the past 10 years, and especially since Rafael Varane's been there, I don't think that environment's conducive to kind of real stellar, complete full potential performance. So yeah, it does just feel a little bit wrong on the side that it's been announced as he's kind of the first player to leave. But then what the things that outweigh that, because there are a lot of things that outweigh that, right? The bigger macro picture of things, something that Manchester United haven't done. We spend so much time focusing on one deal at a time, one player at a time. It's very kind of like individualized thinking, very kind of like a I can't ever say that word, man. compartmentalized. I can't even say it. But it's very like very focused on one thing at one time, right? Very micro focused, looking at the small things in isolation, players in isolation, contracts in isolation, instead of looking at it more holistically. Things have to move, things have to make sense across the board, right? And keeping Rafael Varane probably doesn't make sense across the board. Varane, his wages off the bill, age off the bill, injuries off the bill, and in reality is a declining player, even though he still is a quality player, right? But the peak has been and gone. We know that. So there's a lot of things there that you're getting off the bill, and those things are probably more important than keeping a player for one more year to kind of eke out this last remnants of world-class play, right? And he says, I feel like there's elements of that with Ten Hag. You see how most fans would agree with that Varane should go, and it's the right thing. But people, and we agree that it's correct. It's about making correct decisions, not trying again to eke out some more goodness out of players, managers, etc. And I feel like, yeah, elements, not completely, but with Ten Hag, how everyone's like, one more year. We're not offering Ten Hag a new contract, so we're not. I'm getting away from the point anyway, but just the kind of thing with Ten Hag is we're a lot of fans are saying give him one more year. We're trying to eke out something that might not even be there, right? That's not high level elite performance kind of like attitude. That's not how elite level kind of establishments work. It's about just correct decisions all the time. So yeah, the exodus kind of continues. Maybe this is the first of a player that's been kind of confirmed and announced. But it seems like Ineos are just making correct decision after correct decision. They might not be so huge yet, and they might not have had to kind of like really get into any like hard negotiations yet in regards to players, sale wise. Obviously, we're in a hard negotiation in regards to Dan Ashworth, and we're behaving exactly how I feel like a proper club should behave. Being in hard negotiation, not paying some silly price. Also, not extending Rafa Varane's contract because he's on 375 grand a week or whatever. And another year of that is not. Another year of somebody that's on the decline, who has not a great injury record, and someone that's on such a huge wage bill, is the correct decision to get rid of. And this then comes into question. So Varane's contract, big wage off the bill. Martial, big wage off the bill. Now, is that going to be the same with Sancho? And I feel like it's interesting with Sancho because obviously he's had a great performance in the Champions League. He's been playing pretty decent for Dortmund. Still trying to work his way back into, obviously, not fitness, but just complete match like sharpness in a sense, but just flying in all parameters of the game. So you've got a player like that where his value probably went up enough in that one semi-final game for you to be able to sell him to Dortmund for 40, 50 mil, right? That's probably enough for Ineos to get rid of him and then get rid of his wage and another huge wage off the bill. With Varane, Sancho, Martial, even though it's just like kind of hurtful. It's just not hurtful, but it's just like kind of, I don't know. Hearing those kind of names that we're to get rid of, we're getting rid of the kind of like big continental names, the technical, the kind of like, yeah, less physical players, right? Which that in itself goes back to the point of the kind of like wrong feeling. But this is kind of there can't be a section of players, a player profile that kind of gets away with it, right? We have to be getting rid of the players like the McTominays and the Magwires, and in my opinion, Fernandes and Rashford. Maybe not all in one window, but that's like one side of the coin for me. I put those players together. like effective physical players. And then you've got the likes of your Sanchos and your Casemiros and Varanes and your Ericssons, those types of players where your Sanchos, as I said, and Martials and whatnot, and Greenwood. And you got that side of it, and there seems to be so much talent on that side. But I understand that like majority of them do have to go, but it just feels that feels wrong in a sense, right? In just maybe in like a fantasy land, in a more like football like purity land, but like it is a shame that once now we're going to start trying to like really act proper as a club. We're going to get rid of Sancho. We're going to get, I don't know, Martial's injured, but just in terms of that caliber of like talent, if his body wasn't broken. So we're going to get rid of all these like Greenwood, Sanchos, Martials, Varanes, Casemiros, Ericssons. Like, there's a lot of good talent there, you know, like caliber. And I know at different ages, and a lot of them are probably spent forces, hence why they have to go, right? So yeah, I think it's all in all the correct decision. I think Varane under a new ownership, a new manager with some new players would be good next season, right? But it's about the macro and the bigger picture, and about getting this wage bill down, so then we have flexibility to actually spend in the transfer market, right? So another correct decision by Ineos. It's been nothing but correct decisions. There's been nothing to kind of raise your eyebrow at. I think maybe the only thing in terms of the managerial noise in regards to Tuchel and Potter and Southgate, I feel like that's kind of like a worrying pool of managers that we are kind of like looking at. But also I feel like every time under Ineos, the journalists haven't got nothing right. Zero. They got nothing right during the sales process. They had no clue what was going on. And I feel like under Ineos now, these leaks that they used to get from Manchester United, and where basically we'd know every single announcement days, if not weeks beforehand, I feel like that's kind of like coming to an end. So I feel like the links in the newspapers and the media and whatnot, I feel like there's going to be less reliability on those, you know. And I feel like it's interesting how there must be something that's sorted with the manager, because I don't know, I feel like Tuchel, Southgate and Potter, like it wouldn't surprise me if it was none of those three, and the person that they are hiring is just not been spoken about really whatsoever. I'll find it strange if De Zerbi doesn't go somewhere. I'll still just have this inkling about De Zerbi, even though he came out in a press conference and he said that he's staying, but yeah, I think that still keep an eye out on De Zerbi, and hopefully that will be another correct decision that comes. But that's the only worry so far, the links with the media. Apart from that, I feel like they've done really well. I feel like Ineos have so far, with what they can do, have done everything properly. And I expect some more proper decisions in the transfer market on the sales side of things. I feel like probably a lot of United fans probably are going to get more enjoyment, or just as much enjoyment, out of the player sales as they will people coming in. And yeah, we're going to get battered probably in all three games that we play. But this is there's no need anymore for anger as a United fan. There's no more need to be all disappointed and all like moody and like, oh God, like this is we're in the worst place we've ever been. Like, just grow up, yeah. Go and do something else for starters. Get some other hobbies, so this doesn't just like your life doesn't revolve around this sport. But also understand that things are going to actually get better now. Like, everything is going to get better. So why now, when you can finally see light at the end of the tunnel, finally, there's no need for these emotions and all these bollocks and all these tears, and all this kind of like gloomy mood. This is now go time. This is the time to get excited as a United fan. Like, it doesn't matter about these three games. They're absolutely irrelevant. Who gives two tosses about the FA Cup? No one cares, mate. Not when you're doing what we've been doing, when you finish 8th or whatever. No interest in it whatsoever. Get these three games out of the way, and then we can start properly, and we can actually start expecting things as a club and as a fan base. And this is a good thing. It's a good thing that the notification come through on my phone, Rafa Varane to leave Man United. Makes sense. And I feel like that's every time so far with an Ineos decision, that's been my reaction. It makes sense.